Pure PEMS podcast. The Pure PEMS podcast. The Pure PEMS podcast.
How are you? And welcome to the show. This is a slightly different thing than what I've been doing before. What I'm trying to do is contact people who have sort of branched out and done various things, who have got a Pembrokeshire background. First of all, there are 3 questions which are linked to Pembrokeshire, which I'd just like to ask all my guests. First of all, it is. If there's someone who's going to take a test, you're the person to do it.
Well, that's right.
What's your link to Pembrokeshire?
Well, I was born in Narberth and grew up there, and Mum was in our family home in Narberth until 3 years ago, when she sold it to move to Shrewsbury near my sister. But my mum very suddenly, sadly, passed away a couple of months ago. But my family is still down there, so you know, I was down there last week. In fact, I'm regularly there, and in fact, I am actively trying to establish my health tech company in. Well, we've already kind of made the move across the border to Cardiff, but looking further afield, I was at the Pentra Owl, really super cool new health facility in Llanelli last week, I mean. And yeah, so really trying to establish a base back at home.
Oh, brilliant. When you think about Pembrokeshire, do you have any specific memory or something? It could be a professional or a personal one that really sticks in your mind.
Oh, well, I mean, too many, you know. All my memories of growing up are there from the start, you know. Music in my first band with my friends at school, and it's been annoying over the last 40 years, really, that it's so flipping far away, you know.
But
that is what keeps the magic, because if it was really easy to get there, then it would just be overrun. And you know, it's the kind of remoteness of it that is part of its magic, as well as the, you know, the environment and the coastline. And
so many people use that word magic, and Pembrokeshire has always been a magical place in so many different ways. So if you were to recommend someone to come here, where would you say is a must visit if they came to Pembrokeshire?
Well, I'm obviously going to say Narberth, aren't I?
It is.
As the Narberth super fan and local native, but that whole coast. I mean, my favourite place to go is Freshwater West.
Right.
I absolutely love it there because it's just so rugged and remote. So, you know, those are my two favourites. But Saundersfoot as well. My grandparents lived in Saundersfoot, so I spent a lot of time there. We had a boat in the harbour in Saundersfoot, so we used to go out catching mackerel. I
didn't actually know that you were from Pembrokeshire when we first met, but we met in Kincoid, just to sort of put this in context for people who are watching. Back in those college days when you said, would you like to join a band? So there was that musical connection then. The band that never was, unfortunately, but it was great thinking about what it could have been, all around the time when the Commitments came out. But you've had one absolutely heck of a life, incredible life, since leaving there. So I sort of knew you up to that point. But can you tell us what happened once you left? You did your human movement studies degree.
Yeah. So
what did you go on to then?
Well, so a kind of a fluke thing really jettisoned me off onto a whole other direction, because I went on a student exchange trip to Los Angeles, and while I was in LA, I got the opportunity to go to the US Navy SEALs base in San Diego. And when I was on that base, I met the PT instructors, and they said how they were using music to, you know, increase physical endurance when they, you know, I don't care, when they're marching and everything, but they were also using it for like for breathing, to reduce anxiety in high stress situations and all of this. And you know, I was, you know, in bands in primary school, in bands, DJing, obsessed with music. So this absolutely fascinated me. So when I came back, I went to London and did my master's in across the border in England. And my thesis looked at the effects of music on performance, and then that was published and resulted in me working with the Olympic squads, introducing music as a training tool in the 90s, leading up to the Sydney 2000 Games. So, and then it kind of all rolled from that point. But that fluke visit in California really jettisoned me off into that direction, because it just planted that seed of, oh, you know, it never occurred to me that something chemical was, you know, electrochemical was happening in the brain when you were using music. So it sort of snowballed from that point.
When you started off, was there a time where you thought that, then you said that it was a fluke, that your path might have gone in a completely different direction? I mean, were you going to be a musician, or what was the plan?
Well, no, I was going to do my PGCE and, you know, end up, you know, teach sports, because what was called the human movement studies degree was basically the sports science, became called the sports science degree then, because I'd chosen all the science, physiology, biomechanics, psychology modules, and I did end up teaching, because when I moved to England, I set up a health club chain for a family company, which became very big. But at the same time, I also built the sports science department in a local college linked with Christchurch University. So I have ended up teaching a lot over the years, you know, but it just not in the way that, you know, that kind of PGCE route,
Yeah.
then, you know, it goes into school and then you have that teaching career, don't you? But my DNA is not, I'm not the type of person that can just do a job like that, because I see things and then think, oh, we could fix that, and what if we try this, and what if we try that? So I've ended up just building lots of businesses over the years in a more kind of entrepreneurial life than
But this is some of the things that I want to ask you, because I've been looking through and there are so many different things. When I looked on your webpage and looked at actually the list of some of the things you've been involved with, I know I said it's 30 years, but I don't know how you've packed all that into 30 years. It is just
30 years. 30 years is quite a long time.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
If you're enthusiastic, like, you know, I have no end of enthusiasm, motivation, and energy, and so when you have those ingredients, you can pack a lot of stuff into a short space of time. And I think that I've kind of gravitated towards people who have similar attributes.
Yeah.
So that when you get a bunch of people together, then you can make a lot of stuff happen.
One thing I do remember was turning on the television one morning and seeing someone sat down there on breakfast television talking about a trip on a big red bus.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Well, so I had just done an MBA, and I read this report saying that British music was struggling in America, 0.2% market share or something like that, and the record labels weren't promoting British artists out there because it was too difficult to promote British artists, so they were promoting American artists. Basically, I ended up proposing the idea of an experiential promotional tour across America using pimping out a British double-decker bus.
Iconic image.
Yeah, and, you know, putting British bands on it and emerging British talent, music talent, and getting British brands to support British bands. And I presented this to to the UK music industry and the Visit Britain in America, and I thought it was a good idea, but they were never going to, you know, I could tell they were never going to do it, and so I thought, well, I'll do it, and then I kind of proved that it can work, and
Yeah.
so I ran the first year, and then we got sponsors on the second year, and then we got more sponsors on the third year, and it just grew and grew and grew into this, you know, juggernaut of a thing.
Yeah.
But then after 5 years, it was just too complicated. You know, the third year, there were so many sponsors attached to it that it was no longer a cool music tour, because it was kind of like a traveling British fair. And when you pull into Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 105 degrees, and you're in a British double-decker bus with no air conditioning, with a bus full of Cadbury's chocolate, because they were one of the sponsors, which then turns to liquid when you get into those temperatures, you know. And we had Tetley Tea were one of the sponsors, and I just thought, oh my God, it's not rock and roll. So I moved on after that. We only did 3 years of it, but it was amazing, Tim. If you can imagine, especially the first 2 years when we were just like struggling along, you know, real grassroots sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Crashing in motel rooms as we went across America, but just pulling up and doing all these gigs with these young British artists. It's an amazing way to see America.
How was it
45 miles
received?
an hour.
Because seeing a British double-decker bus pulling up, as you said, through some of these places, and I think you visited all sorts of places, didn't you?
Yeah, we did that bus did 20,000 miles at 45 miles an hour top speed. So it was cool. And that ended up that resulted in me doing my PhD, because we were doing these events for college audiences, right? That was the idea, that we would bring these young British artists and then do these college shows. But we would turn up, and people in their, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s would be at these shows and saying how much they're massive fans of British music, and they grew up with British music in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all, you know, all the big names. And it was just really interesting talking to these people in all those events, because I was just thinking, oh my God, they've got such detailed memories of their music memories from youth, when they, you know, when they were telling me about these shows and the music and everything, the British artists. So I ended up then later, when I came back to the UK, doing a PhD looking at the lifelong effects of music memories from youth, because I was just really intrigued why, you know, that this then led me into researching into the dementia space.
Yeah.
Because even when you've lost pretty much all of your memories, you can still recognize those songs from your childhood, from your youth.
Yeah.
And that really fascinates me, and it was just another indication of the power of music, you know, because it's much more than entertainment. The way I kind of explain it to people is that the brain lives in a silent black box, the skull, right? The only way that it knows what's going on in the outside world and whether we're in danger or not is through the information it receives through the senses. So sound is our 360-degree vision, right? Because even if our eyes can't see what's coming behind us, we can hear stuff approaching from behind. And so the reward pathway in the brain in particular, that circuit and highly linked to emotion and memory, our survival, you know, it's survival wiring. It's and sound, you instinctively know sounds that are safe, and you instinctively know sounds that could be dangerous. They sound different. And the music industry and music in general basically builds on those principles to be able to have those chemical effects in the brain that are triggered from those evolutionary reward pathways.
Talking of dangerous music, I'm going to speak to you towards the end about your latest band, which you mentioned before.
Yeah.
That's the name of the band, I have to point out. But before that, can we sort of summarize a few of the things here? Because I thought, if I'm going to speak to you and reading about what you've actually done, I find it fascinating, and it ties into so many things which I've been looking at as well. I know that you mentioned about your mum and sadly passing recently, but I've read that some of the things which you've looked at with regards to people and passing, and you mentioned your dad before, being preventable lifestyle-based things. How has your sort of personal journey affected your outlook on this kind of thing?
Well, this particular company now that I've been working on for the past 6 years is 100% driven by the fact that I saw Dad lose decades of life, right? He died heart attack in a hotel room, age 65, celebrating his 65th birthday after years of lifestyle related, obesity related illnesses, you know, cholesterol, high blood pressure, and an inability to get on top of that, coupled with the fact that we were giving people wrong advice back then as well, you know,
Yeah,
avoid fat and, you know, all of that. And so that was a real driver, because basically after I did my PhD, because my PhD had brought me into the dementia world, because I was looking at the effects of music on the brain and music and memories from youth, that brought me back in to work on an NHS project, helping them put music within their dementia strategy at the first dementia village that the NHS had built in the UK. This was in 2018. And that brought me back into the kind of the health world,
yeah,
since I had, you know, previously built the health club chain and been in that world throughout the 90s into the 2000s. So this brought me back in, and I looked at the rise of everything, not just dementia, but the rise of everything, right? And I plotted 50 years of diet and fitness revenues, and over 50 years, the diet and fitness industry revenues had grown. Then over the same 50-year timeline, I plotted average waistline size, which has also grown. Then on the same 50-year timeline, I plotted chronic physical and mental disease, which has also grown. So as the diet, fitness and wellness industry has grown over 50 years, the scale of the health crisis has continued to grow over the 50 years. And yet we're still giving the same recommendations today, pretty much, give or take, that we were 40 years ago, 30 years ago, when I first entered the sector, right? We're still doing the same thing. Give people a bunch of recommendations of the health habits they have to form, and then maybe see them once a week, or it just doesn't work. And the
yeah,
reality is that Mum now, you know, under my nose last year, diagnosed with bowel cancer, no symptoms. 12 weeks later, she was gone, right? It was, and my friend, a school friend, exactly the same thing the year before. So my great grandparents died of infections, right? So things that we now know how to avoid. But then my grandparents died of lifestyle diseases, like cancers and strokes. My
yeah,
parents have now died of lifestyle diseases. So 2 generations have died of preventable lifestyle diseases. So we figured out how to fix the infections, but now we are in danger of also dying from the same preventable lifestyle diseases. And the reason is that we are not really understanding how habits are formed in the brain. So giving people a bunch of habits and telling them, right, you've got to go and form these health habits, you know, eat the banana instead of the cake, don't have sugar in your tea, don't blah blah, you know, to eat more fruits and vegetables, exercise every day. That, you know, we give them a bunch of health habits, but the reality is that the way the brain forms a lasting behavior is through a process called long-term potentiation. And if my hand is a brain cell, and that's the middle of the brain cell, and every time we repeat a habit, molecules are being moved around that cell and trafficked the outer membrane of these projections called dendrites, right? So the more you repeat a behavior, more of these molecules are being put in the outer membrane, and they act as receptors to be able to capture neurotransmitter chemicals that are sent from the brain cells next to them. That process takes ages. It's a biological process. You have to repeat the habit, preferably daily, for months for that process to reach a point where it's stable. Otherwise, if you stop doing the habit too soon, a reverse effect happens, and these molecules are moved back to the cell, to the center of the cell again, right? Recycled back in. So unless we change the coaching model, because the health, fitness and wellness industry is still built on this same model, give people loads of habits that they've got to do, all the recommendations, and then those individuals have to somehow miraculously go and keep up the effort on their own. And most people will fail, they'll fizzle out. So I've been looking at how we know that human support is what helps people keep going, right? If you want someone to keep going longer, you give them frequent human support. But that's been really expensive over the years to give everyone a coach or a personal trainer. It's too expensive, isn't it? So my research set out to identify the minimum effective dose of human support. And that turned out to be an accountability partner sending someone a WhatsApp message, right? Just checking in every day, saying, right, Tim, you decided that you were going to work on trying to embed X habit.
Yeah. I'll
show up for you as your accountability partner every day with a simple WhatsApp message. You've just got to reply to my message when I say, right, Tim, I've been all over the place today. It's been a busy day, but the sun's out. Did you do your habit today? And you just have to reply with a thumbs up if you did the habit that day, or reply with a heart if you didn't manage to do it that day, but your heart's still in it. We'll check in again the next day. And the simplicity of that, of just showing up for someone every day, a human, not a bot, not a annoying tech nudge that you can just dismiss, a human accountability partner that you have committed to, whether that's someone in the gym or someone at work or whoever it is. You know, that human to human connection is the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle, as far as I'm concerned. Unless we start giving this frequent human support and hooking humans up with humans to work together to embed lasting habits, we are nowhere near seeing the end of preventable illnesses, because if it's behavior based, you have to change the behavior, and changing the behavior means rewiring the brain.
Yeah.
And those networks of brain cells will not wire through long-term potentiation process unless you repeat the habit repeatedly 4 months. So when I see all this stuff out there, it's like, oh, we've got this new app and it's going to give you all this detailed knowledge about all the different habits it's going to have no impact. People will start using it for a little bit, but then they still won't be able to change the behavior on their own. Yeah. So I'm on a mission now to try and get the industry to update the coaching model to say, right, the coaching model should be, you see the person, whether it's in employee wellness program or a gym or whatever it is, or the NHS, you see the program, you say to them, right, this is the habit one, pick one, not a million. We'll start with this one habit. I want you to every day try and do this habit, and we will check in together through WhatsApp. And so the platform that we've built basically enables those behavior change providers to connect with tons, hundreds, thousands of people really easily by sending one message, which our platform then delivers individually to everyone so that they can respond with their thumbs up or hearts. We just got to make it simple, Tim.
Yeah, I think the whole thing has been overcomplicated, but how can people find out about what you're doing?
So the website is holidity.com, or there's a link through my drjuliajones.com, and we're working with, you know, the leading sort of health and fitness brands right now, rolling out pilots and with corporate employers and with SMEs, helping them set up this kind of internal structure using our platform so that they can really easily start to embed these monthly habit change challenges where people just sign up and say, right, this month we're going to pick one habit together and we're going to go at it, relentlessly pursue that habit every day to try and help this neural wiring you know, do its job. And I often explain it like a very quickly example, because I think it's an easy way to understand it. If I want to plant a rose in my garden, I can go on my phone, buy a rose, it'll be delivered tomorrow really quick. But then I'll have to plant it in my garden. And when I put it in the soil, the roots don't suddenly explode out of the bottom of it.
Yeah.
That biological process of growth takes time, right? That's a biological process. It'll take ages for that root network to grow, and I'll have to look after it in the early days. I'll have to water it, I might have to give it a bit of food, I'll have to, you know, tie it if it's windy, I'll have to protect it and really help it along. But then it'll be stabilized and it will exist on its own quite happily with sunshine and rainwater, and
That is
it'll
a great
be strong.
analogy.
Right. And that's where we're missing the missing link, is that we're expecting people to magically connect all these brain cells together in a very slow biological process by just giving them a sheet of paper and saying, right, those are the habits that you need to work on.
You said about patterns, and I know that neuroscience is something which is your field. And I want to come on and talk a little bit in a moment just about patterns in children's behavior, and about how perhaps when we were younger, and children of the past, we don't really compare to the way that children are developing in the modern world, because, well, I might as well speak about it now. We used to go out and play, and sport, I know, was heavily involved in your past. That's how I met your dad, was because I used to play for county schools rugby. Your dad, I know, was involved county youth rugby, so I always remember him sort of being there. But children don't partake in sports as much as they used to, and they're normally sat on a screen of some kind. How do you think that actually is affecting them going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a different existence now, and that you know, that had started to come in when I was a kid, and we had the video games, you know, and that kind of fascination of it. But now it's on a whole other level of having it in your hand all day long, and there's no good is going to come of this. You know, it's just not, it's not how we evolved. And when you think about, if you want to try and stay as healthy as possible, then existing as close as possible to the way that we evolved. So, you know, very simple existence: go out, you get daylight, you find food, you exercise through your search for food, you get sleep at night because it gets dark, and then you wake up when the sun comes up. The further away you get from that, so whether it's fake food that's being made in factories, or staring at digital screens. And there was a really interesting, I think it's Stanford University research project during the pandemic, because suddenly we were all doing this, right? I mean, we weren't doing this before the pandemic, were we? On virtual calls like this. And they showed the effects on the brain when you're staring at a person, like up close on a screen, like a big face on a screen, and the stimulation level of the brain, the brain never drops back down in terms of brain frequencies. You know, when you're going back down to slower frequencies where the brain is kind of all relaxed in default network mode, and it's just constant stimulation all the time. It's very stressful. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because it's a relatively short period right now. You know, it's a couple of decades really where this has changed so dramatically, and AI might in a way help from a social media perspective, because we're now getting flooded with so much content
Yeah.
that it's just too much now, and you don't know what's real and what isn't real, and it's like, well, what's the point? Because now it's like, is that real or is it not? It's like, you know, the only thing I use my social media channels for are just sharing stuff to do with work, or sharing if I've done a podcast, or if it's something relevant. I never go on the news feed because it is a drug, you know. It really sucks you in, and for me, I just don't want to spend my time like that.
You said before about concentrating on one thing, and you said about the news feed now, but you do see so many. I'm not asking you to comment upon an individual, that would be wrong, but I see the likes of Gary Brecker, David Huberman, Brian Johnson, people like that, who are extremely clever people, but there seems to be so many different things that you can do now. But I think from a personal angle, sometimes it's overcomplicated because there are so many good things you could do. What you said was spot on. Just concentrate on one.
Less is more, right? And I've got, so I'm working on this next book at the moment, which the working title is Flawed as right. I'm assuming you can beat that out. But everything, there are so many flaws in all of these systems, and during that research, I was looking at the rise of the wellness gurus, right, and the rise of health celebrities and things like that, and I started kind of drifting into this space myself, because it's like, oh, you have to build your followers and you have to build your numbers, and because if you want a book deal, you've got to have a certain amount of followers, like, and when I suddenly woke up and thought, oh my God, I'm like buying into this whole thing myself now, because these, you know, they're churning out content. It's like, oh, what do we need to talk about today? Let's find something to talk about today. Because once they get a little bit of success, it's not enough to just do, oh, let's do 5 episodes about sleep, fruits and vegetables, social well-being, and, you know, the basic pillars of health, and then just leave the podcast series as that. Because once you start building a following, and you have to keep feeding the algorithm to keep getting the followers and to keep getting the advertising income and to keep getting the revenues, because then it all becomes about money. So churning out content now and just completely littering the landscape with loads of complexity, which is just confusing people and won't have any impact on the health crisis, because we need to simplify. And I saw this in the kind of the fitness world in the 90s, where we suddenly made exercise complicated, right? It's like, oh no, you have to stretch your hamstring in this precise way, otherwise it might snap, you know, and all that complexity around it. And now we're just saying to people, just walk, you know, just go for a walk. It's because an industry builds and grows around these concepts, and then the complexity grows around it. But we have to remember that a lot of this is just products and marketing.
What would you say to the average person in the street? What are the maybe the top 3 things that they can do which would really benefit them in the long term?
Stop eating anything that's been made in a factory. Definite. It is the evidence out there now of what all of these extra additives and emulsifiers and all these other bits and bobs that are put in there to extend the shelf life and to make them look a certain way and make them, you know, it's poison. And we wouldn't take poison and spray it in our eye, and yet we've normalized putting this stuff into our mouth, which is poisoning us from the inside out. We should be eating fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, high quality chicken, fish, where you know where it's come from, preferably.
Yeah. That just makes so much sense. And what about
But it's hard. It's hard, Tim, in this environment because we're surrounded by shit food.
um it's the money machine, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. What about actual fitness things? What you said, walking. Is there anything else that possibly people can look at?
Walking, walking, walking. If you go back again to our evolutionary past, it's like, what do we used to do? We used to walk for absolutely miles, looking for food, looking for shelter. We were walking machines. And when you're carrying stuff and manual labor, which we obviously don't do now, so you have to fake that um with weights and weight training. I did an experiment on January the 1st, 2020. I cancelled my gym membership, and I tried to just put habits into my daily routine to try and mimic the effects of what I was doing, right? And the only thing that I could not tackle through that was protecting muscle mass. So my muscle mass over the last 5 years has declined. I'm now back in the gym, rebuilding the muscle mass it went from high normal to low normal, right? Because you can't really, it's hard to build that into your routine unless you have a manual labor sort of job.
Yeah. And that's important for people, especially as they grow older, because that causes a lot of frailty, I suppose. And
yeah, absolutely.
On that subject, talking of it's all over social media, supplements, the likes of creatine, the likes of lion's mane mushrooms, and things like that, affecting mental health as well. What's your view on all of that?
Well, I think there's only one thing that we should be doing, which is vitamin D. We definitely need vitamin D, especially in Wales.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the whole of the UK, basically, we definitely need to be supplementing that for the majority of the year. With everything else, what I keep going back to the habit thing, right? When I meet people, I ask them, what their routines are and what they do. And a lot of people have started off on various supplements, or they've started off on, oh, I've got this new mushroom tea, or I've got this supplement, or I've got that supplement. And then, will you be doing that for the rest of your life? Because the effect happens then.
Yeah.
You don't have a month's worth of supplements and then the effect continues the rest of your life. So if you're going to commit to a supplement and you think you need it, then you have to commit to a lifelong relationship with that supplement, because these things are temporary, right? So I always urge people to just focus on the food element. It's like, if you can get everything naturally, then you'll save yourself the time and hassle of having to buy other things that you then have to remember to buy, and you have to remember to restock, and you have to remember to have it with you when you go away, and it's just complicated.
Oh, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Food obviously leads me on to the gut-brain connection. And my wife has been telling me all about this gut-brain connection, but I know it's something that you've looked into.
Yeah, so the vagus nerve, so a lot of our stress, we've got the autonomic nervous system has got two major branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which should be dominant most of the time, right? It's the sympathetic nervous system, that response should only be activated for emergencies, or when we're having to go and do something, or we need that burst of activity. At all other times, we should be in parasympathetic mode, resting, digesting, repairing tissues, not building up the kind of byproducts of the sympathetic nervous system. And the vagus nerve is highly linked to the gut. So it is wired that way, right? It is an actual nerve that connects all this stuff together. So there is a very clear, undisputed connection. This is biology, that what you eat, and it's bi-directional as well. So what you eat is impacting the way that your brain is operating. And also, if you're constantly in stress, if your brain is constantly activating the sympathetic fight or flight mode, then you're disrupting the parasympathetic branch, which is the vagus nerve. So it impacts. So, that kind of high stress alert mode is disrupting the normal functioning of the gut. So it's what you eat is, I cannot stress how important it is to really think about what you are putting into your body, because we have normalized a lot of very, very bad products that are legally allowed to be known as food and drink.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, generations ahead are going to look back at this time and go, oh my God, like, look what they were putting in their bodies. It's like the asbestos, right? It's like, oh my God, they were building with asbestos. It's going to be like, further when they look back at this period, it's like, oh my God, look what they were putting in their body. It's poison.
Yeah. And like you said, passing it off as food.
Yeah.
When I look back at my family, I mean, years ago, they ate pretty simply. And when some of this processed stuff was coming through, I was brought up with my grandparents and my mum. And my granddad was looking at it and saying, I can't repeat the kind of words which he'd use, but that crap, that, what is it? So our habits I've seen change so much, but thankfully that there has been a little bit of a movement of late that seems to be waking up to all of this. But again, it's that money connection as well. I don't tend to go to some of the takeaway restaurants, but I know that some of the children, they get a toy with it, and it's been impregnated into their brains.
Yeah, and we don't know what we're eating. With Mum, she thought she was doing the right thing in terms of what she was eating, but then I would show her, if she had a soup. I can remember during the pandemic, she said, oh, you'll be really proud of me today. I've had vegetable soup. It's like, oh, brilliant. Did you make it? No, it's going to have sugar in it. It's got, like, what are you talking about? It's not going to have sugar. It's like, have you still got the can? It's in the recycling bag. So she went off to the recycling bag, got the can, and I could hear her as she was walking back to the phone, like, saying, like, what the hell has it got sugar in it? Or, all this stuff that's in all of these things. You actually don't know what you're eating. And this is why it's so dangerous, because when you start reading the ingredients and, thinking, put that back on the shelf.
Oh, definitely.
Go to the fruits and veg aisle, and then go and get some healthy protein and give your body what it's built for.
I took out sugar from my diet and really cleaned it up. And what I did after maybe about 5 or 6 months of not eating sugar, I thought, just try something now. The first thing was I felt really, really hot and like I was having a hot flush. And I thought, right, I didn't realize this before. And now I find that if I do eat sugary things, all my joints start flaring up again.
It's an inflammatory.
Yeah.
There is an inflammatory response. And they're now kind of linking this all in as well with blood pressure and stuff like that, because this inflammation of the vessels. There's a really great book called Unglued, which is about glucose, basically coming off sugar and coming off glucose. And it's by a surgeon in America who basically amputates feet on, diabetic patients who have just got to the point where, you know, it can't be reversed, and they're looking at it, and it is, you know, we're not meant to eat sugar in this amount, because sugar was, you'd get it through berries and fruits and things like that, or if you were able and brave, you'd climb a tree to a beehive and get some honey. But now, like, we're just not built for that amount of that particular substance. It's, you know, the body responds negatively to it, not just the weight gain, but the inflammatory response.
But what about alcohol? Is that okay?
Well, sadly not, but it's my one sin. In moderation, because there's all the evidence now shows, you know, none of the beliefs about even red wine, you know, where it says, well, it's got resveratrol in it. It's like, the amount of that is not really gonna have a health impact compared to the toxin part of it, the alcohol part of it. You know, our body has to cleanse that out, and it's linked to so many cancers that it's, you know, it is to be approached with caution and common sense.
And disrupts sleep patterns as well.
Yeah, I try. So if I'm drinking, I'll try and have it early, so not late. So if I'm having it earlier, then at least your body's trying to process it out of your system, so it doesn't wreck your sleep. So you've wrecked your sleep as well as your cells. It has that time, and also with a meal. So if you're eating a healthy meal, then you've got that mass of food in your intestines going through. So there's, you know, there's stuff in the way of it. It's whereas if you're just drinking and not eat, and you haven't eaten, then that is just going straight through the wall of the intestine into the bloodstream and hitting in a wave, you know, like if you're drinking fizzy drinks, where you basically it goes straight through the wall of the intestine, and you get this massive spike, which then has to drive an insulin response. So when you look at the blue zones around the world and the Mediterranean diet, things like that, they're drinking wine with their meal, but they're having a glass of wine with a healthy meal. Yeah. Which is very different to the way that we, you know, culturally consume it, which is go to the pub, have a packet of crisps and 10 pints of lager.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Not saying that you do that, Tim, but that, you know, historically we have both done that in our time.
Allegedly, yes. Before we finish off on that part, I just wanted to speak at the end about a couple of personal things. But if you had a message to give to the general public about health, and you said keep it simple, but what would your message be?
I would say stop reading about health, stop consuming wellness content online, and just strip it back to the basics, because we all know what we're meant to be doing. Eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less food that's been made in a factory, strip out sugars, go for a walk, have an early night, spend some time with your friends and your family. That is basically the best health program that you can follow.
But if they did want to read, you have 3 excellent books to date, which I know that you've written.
Well, if they did want to read, yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to get that one in there. And that you are writing another excellent one at the moment, which I'm sure would be beneficial.
Well, I've actually put those first 3 are on my website now. You just click the cover and it opens as an ebook, so you don't even have to buy it. You can just go and read it at juliajones.com. All those 3 books are there. The Music Diet, which looks at all of the different effects of music on the brain and body. Neuron documented my 12-month experiment that I ran on myself, looking at all the different habits that you can kind of put into your daily routine and the science that underpins them.
I'm just looking at them here.
Yeah, and then F-bomb
Yes.
was the last one, which looked at basically all of the reasons that got us into this mess and all the little steps that can get us out of it.
Brilliant. And I'll put a link to the website in the interview. Can I, on you said about stress. Now, let's talk personally now. I've looked on your website. You've got your TED Talks on there. I've often wondered, what is it like? That must be such a stressful environment to have to stand up there in front of everyone. You know that you've got academics, people, top people in their fields, and you're having to stand and deliver. What is that experience like?
Well, funnily enough, our music past was very valuable in that regard, because standing up on stage, right, with a microphone, when you do that loads in a band and singing, and you're just used to people staring at you, which is what happens when you're on a band and you're singing, you've got a microphone,
Yeah.
and you just get used to that. Then, but over the years, I'm teaching as well, you know, being in front of the class with bunch of people who don't really want to listen. You have to try and you know, engage and keep those minds engaged. That's really good practice. And so I do a lot of corporate speaking and stuff like that. And because when you're speaking about something, a topic that you know in depth,
Yeah.
it's not as intimidating, you know. And if you do it regularly, it's not as intimidating, because what's going to happen, you know, I know what I know the subject that I'm talking about. If I had to go and do it on something that I didn't know in depth, then I'd be crapping myself, especially, you know, when you're in an environment, because I've had to fill in for people sometimes, and then there's Q&A at the end, and you think, oh god, it's getting really close as to how I can like navigate this topic. But then I realized that when there's a question you can't answer, you just say that you can't answer it.
Yeah.
Don't try and bluff it, because that is, especially these days when everything's online and everything is there forever, you know. If you don't know something, then just say it's no big deal.
Yeah. But you've got a reputation as being one of those people. Oh no, you have. It's funny.
What are you going to say? What kind
It's
of
a positive, as taking complicated subjects and being able to deliver them in a way that people can absorb easily.
It's vital, you know. It's essential, isn't it? Because if you don't understand something, and if you can't, and I'm a very visual person, so when I'm, you know, describing a brain cell using my hand, or talking about the long-term potentiation process, the neural wiring process, using the rose example, I can see those images which help me understand, and I think that helps other people understand. And I actually did a post on LinkedIn today about, I reposted something about simplicity, because often you get, so I'm, you know, we're doing a second investment round now to scale up this platform, this company. And when you're presenting it, it's like, oh, and those features. So it just works like that. And there's just, are there any more features, and how much AI will be involved? Because everyone's got this obsession with making everything really complex. It's like, you do understand that this simple product is driving 90% engagement and 70% response rate, because it's simple.
Yeah.
That's why it works. So don't get brainwashed into thinking that you've got to make something really complicated for it to succeed, because often we overcomplicate, we overthink things. The answers are the simplest one.
And people switch off. People switch off. If it's too complicated, that's it. The message is gone, because the first few sentences, and they don't understand. So that's it. I'm not going to understand this. I wasn't going to ask you about this, but somebody who fascinates me in the music industry is Rick Rubin. And he talks, I read his book, and where he talks about creativity and flow. and about work. I also read Quincy Jones's book then on the same subject. Whereabouts do you think that kind of inspiration and these things come from? Because they said the very time that it seems to come on strongest is when they're not chasing it.
Yeah. And when you have your best ideas when you're out on a dog walk, or when you're in the shower, right?
So many
When
people
you're
say the dogs.
Yeah, when your mind, you go to that kind of default mode networks. There is a network in the brain that is like mind wandering mode, which is meant to be, we're meant to be in that mode a lot. We're meant to be just gazing out into space and into the landscape, and our peripheral vision, panoramic vision, and really relaxed and letting the thoughts flow. But what happens in our daily life is that we switch into kind of central executive mode, where the prefrontal cortex of the brain is driving everything, and we're really focused on something, or we're making something happen, and there isn't time to allow that kind of that mind wandering to happen, and we're taught that. I mean, in school you are punished if you're in that mode, because you're taught to not be in that mind wandering mode, because you have to concentrate, Julia, concentrate, focus, and apply yourself. So that kind of, that powerful functionality of the brain is, we're overriding it constantly with things that we're doing. So just stepping back and just letting the thoughts flow. When I was watching the Olympics last night, and they were doing the skeleton, which I would never do, but the commentators were saying, just let the sleigh do it, right? Just don't interfere with it. Just let the thing go. Just let it go, because it'll go at a super high speed. Don't interfere with it, and that kind of thing. When we're getting in the way of our thoughts, getting in the way of our brain, like, sometimes it's useful to do that if you're having negative thoughts, or if you thought, I'm constantly having to keep thoughts about mum dying and that whole horrendous trauma that we went through with that a couple of months ago. I have to keep that out of my mind, because I'm in bits. If I let it in, I just can't. Sometimes I do, because it's not good to keep it out all the time. But on a daily basis, I'm just keeping it out over there, and staying in control of that.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah, because I'm keeping it out over here.
Oh gosh, and look, it's something which is one of life's inevitables, but you never want it to come.
No, you don't. No, and that's why I think, mum lost 10 years of healthy life, definitely, in a minute, right? In a couple of weeks. It was just a very rapid decline, from being absolutely fine, going out shopping in Cardiff, to a few days later being in A&E. And the same with Dad. He went to the hotel to celebrate his birthday weekend with Mum, never came back, 65. So he lost 2 decades so between them, there's 30 years of healthy life, right?
Yeah.
That they lost through lifestyle illnesses. And I just think that we have got to get on top of this, because it is preventable. It doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, much
So
definitely.
that is my current mission, and it's interesting looking at the investment landscape right now, because you have to, having a mission and a passion and a purpose isn't enough, because you have to show the profit margins, and you have to show it as a commercial viable, scalable business, and that, which it is, but it's good to be both, right? To build a business that is profitable and scalable, but also can have a very, very significant impact on adding extra years of healthy life and saving the health crisis, because we're not going to have an NHS in decades ahead when we're going to need it, when you and me are going to need it.
Definitely.
Where's it going to be? It's not going to be there.
And you said about building the business, but it's built on ethical principles as well. Not, I couldn't care less. I just want the dollar.
Yeah, it's about, but it's about finding people who also will align with that, who recognize the impact it can have and want to come on that journey,
Yeah. I believe you're involved with a choir, is that correct?
I'm a trustee of Young Voices, which is a schools choir, largest schools choir in the world. And all the every year, all the thousands of primary schools participate in this, and they have to learn the words to all of the songs, and then they go to the O2 Arena and Manchester Arena, and they get to sing in the arena, right? And so there is an excitement around learning the words to those songs and reading those songs. And when you can inject some sort of passion and interest into it, it no longer becomes a drag, does it? Because there's a reason for it.
Yeah, when I was in school, we were involved with that project, and it was great. I think they beamed it live from the O2, and we stood in school and sang with it.
Yes. Yeah, so I've been a trustee for about 15 years, I think. So we did do a live stream. And have you heard Friday, there was a press release about the Land of Song Festival. So Young Voices were doing a massive children's choir and adult choir event at Principality Stadium in May 2027.
Oh, I'll definitely keep a lookout for it. Quickly, I know I've taken so much of your time, but you're Dr. Rock. Tell me, how did all that come about?
Well, I ended up with this Dr. Rock nickname because I've spent years telling people to get more music into their life, right? And into their Olympic training, or into the health club, or into the training regime, I've always been championing music as a biohack, right? It's like my favorite biohack is it's a direct channel into the brain to hack into that biology and to create different responses. And then I did my PhD, so then I actually was a doctor, and so that took that kind of Dr. Rock thing to another level. And now I am, as my Dr. Rock persona, I am lead guitarist in Pretty Crap, the all-female rock band, which is all. I was just learning lead guitar for brain health research purposes and for personal health, brain health purposes, to build some new brain connections as I was getting older. And then I met some other girls, bass player who's in her late 40s that she just started playing bass, a drummer who had just started having drum lessons. She's in her early 60s now, and we just hired a rehearsal studio, put out an advert, found a lead singer in her 20s, this blonde front woman, and we became Pretty Crap. And that was about 3 years ago, and I love it. It's, well, you know what it's like being in a band is just brilliant, isn't it? It's just brilliant.
You get such a buzz.
It's so much fun. And there are 3 different ages. You've got your biological age, which is your cellular age, your level of inflammation internally. You've got your chronological age, which is your birthday, and then you've got your subjective age, which is how old you feel. And so my chronological age is 55. My biological age is around the same sort of area. My subjective age is significantly lower. And I still like 20s in my mind. You know, I'm out there, I'm doing it, I'm driving it, I'm motivated. But when I'm in a band, I'm like 15 when I was in that band in school. When I was in my first band in school, it takes me right back there. And when you look at people like, you know, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Paul McCartney and, you know, all the singer-songwriters that the musicians that are out there, the rock legends that are still touring in their 80s, and they're still nailing it because their subjective age is being anchored down by that music passion and that music activity, especially because the songs that they're playing are the songs that they were playing when they were in their 20s, right? Because when they early on in their career, they're still playing those hits. So
Is that what it is?
really,
Because I saw the Stones about a few years back in Cardiff, and they were incredible, but it was not just the fact that they were incredible as a band. The energy was there. I saw Paul McCartney last Christmas. He was brilliant.
yeah.
It just seems that music is something which really taps into that and gives you a different look on life.
Yeah, and there's research that has shown that a low subjective age can override the other ages, right? So as people age, they showed that when you're combating frailty, in particular in older adults, if you can maintain a young subjective age, then they age better. They age healthier than people who think old, you know, oh, I'm an old person and I'm a frail old person and I'm better just not do that because I'm old. But if you can help people maintain that younger subjective age, then they age in a different way.
Pretty crap. What kind of stuff are you playing?
Rock stuff, rock and pop, Wet Leg,
Oh yeah,
some Stone stuff, a lot of Blondie,
you gigging?
banging out those classics. Yeah, we do. I've missed loads of gigs recently because I've just been away a lot and really busy, and I'm not there. So I've now got a brilliant Dep. She's too good. I'm like, stop being so good, woman.
Yeah. And whereabouts can people sort of catch you playing?
Well, we're basically playing in London and the southeast, so that's where they're all based there, and I'm there as well. So they, but you know, maybe a Welsh tour, maybe a Pembrokeshire tour.
Oh, that would be brilliant. That
Yeah.
would be brilliant. So what's next? What have you got lined up? You said about the book is in development. Uh, whereabouts do you see yourself heading?
Well, I am absolutely full throttle on the Holidity startup because now we've got the product finished and the platform built. We're out there getting employers to sign up to use it for their workforces, to help their workforces form healthy habits. We're out there with the leading health and fitness chains, introducing it into their part of their kind of induction protocol. So when people join a gym, then they can get onto this habit reset challenge and get the daily check-ins with the coaches to help them form lasting habits. So absolute full focus on that right now, because that's, you know, getting a startup. This company has been in startup mode for a very long time because it took a long time to find the answer, because we were like, you know, I wanted to know, why is nothing working? Why isn't anything working, and what should we be doing instead? And that took me down the rabbit hole of looking at gut health. It took me down the rabbit hole of looking at supplements. It took me down the rabbit hole of looking at all kinds of different apps and different wearables that measure your biology. But everything came back to the same problem, is that people start doing it and then they fizzle out unless they've got human support. So once that became obvious, then our focus became on how to identify the minimum effective dose of human support and then build a platform that could enable it to be delivered at scale really affordably. And that has taken 6 years. You know, it's a very long journey, and so now it's all about getting it out there, and
It just makes so much sense. It really, it's something which, when you explain it, you think that's going to work. That's just,
yeah, it's so obvious, right? It's like, but that's why
but they're the best things.
we overlook it, and
Yeah.
and digital just hasn't, the thinking was over the last decade is that humans are too expensive to give to everyone as human support. It's too expensive to scale up, so we'll just give everyone an app and we'll send them digital notifications and digital nudges. But we can see that digital health era has not worked, because nothing works as you don't have the same social obligation with an app as you do with a human checking in with you every day and asking you asking you to reply, to tell them. There's a guilt attached to it, you feel obligated to respond, and so there's a much greater effect.
Well, Julia, it is
Right.
absolutely brilliant to catch up with you. All the very best with everything you're involved with. Make sure you don't miss too many of those gigs, because I know how much you obviously enjoy it, and I am looking forward to the Pembrokeshire tour. What you were doing is literally life-changing and life-saving. And finally, can I just thank you for being such a great guest on the Pure Pems podcast.
Thank you, and it's great to be reunited after all these years. Thank you.